Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Talking Craps. And I sincerely apologize. I broke the cardinal rule. I actually had YouTube up in the background, and it was hearing it through the through my headset, along with my broadcasting software. So that was my bad. Hearing the voices in my head, it was just me, and I apologize for the rough start, Garrison. This is not the way I wanted to start your show, but let's put that behind us. Tonight, we do have an excellent show ahead for you. We have Garrison. He is the author of the Platinum Craps and Dice Setting book. He's going to be here to tell us a little bit about his book, a little bit about his instruction videos, and we're going to start the show talking a little bit about old school Vegas and how he got started with craps. So let's head over to Las Vegas and bring Garrison on the screen. Welcome, Garrison.
Welcome, David, from Viva Las Vegas. Another sunny day, fun day in the neighborhood. Hope everything's good. You're in Kansas City, right?
Wichita, Kansas.
Okay, Wichita. Well, Bright Light City, gonna send my soul. His little toast to the people that are watching.
Yeah.
Old school Riviera, not even around anymore. So basically, just kind of give you a little bit of background. I used to live in Cleveland, Ohio. Then I moved to Michigan, came out to Vegas in 06. And when I think I was about 15, 16, my uncle brought up a crap table. It was just in a big wooden box, had all the green rubber around it. So he tried to teach us, the basics, bet a pass line, take odds, take two come bets. And all we did was lose all our pennies and buttons. I mean, I got slaughtered when I first learned how to play. So eventually, I picked up a few books and read a little bit. I was a musician in Cleveland. I belonged to Local 4. We used to come out to Vegas back in the day, probably mid-'70s. Elvis was still here. Frank was here. Sammy was here. Dean was here. But dollar for dollar, the best shows were the lounge shows because we didn't have a lot of money. So for one or two drinks, you could go in the lounge show and see, Wayne Cochran and the CC Riders. That's just for the musicians out there. The Righteous Brothers, all the Motown acts were lounge shows. Louis Prima and Keely Smith started in the lounge way back when. So those were great shows. But I was part of Local 4, which is a musicians union in Cleveland. It was a big union. They had the Cleveland Orchestra, and back then there were no DJs, no electronic music. So everybody had live music, from the Brown Derbies to the Ramada Inns to the Hiltons. There were hundreds of clubs. In fact, the circuit back east is Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago. Every group played those three, and I don't care if you're Frank Sinatra or the Beatles or Barbra Streisand or David Bowie. They all played Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago. So we came out, and one of my friends from the union said, call this gentleman. He's the vice president and runs Caesar's Palace, which back in the day was connected. And a lot of people from Cleveland came out to Vegas. So, okay, I said, all right, I'll call. And I called. And I told him who I was, and I told him who the person was that gave me the name. And I said, is there any way we could see, Frank Sinatra for the show? It was Frank, his daughter was on the show, his son was on the show, and it was the Woody Herman Orchestra. So he said, well, what night you want to come? I said, whatever's good for you. He said, all right, I'm going to make your seating arrangements, but you have to pay for the tickets. I said, fine, I'm not looking for a free ride. So anyways, we go to the show. Now, back in the day, if anybody remembers, they had these really long tables, and they would seat like 8-10 couples at a table. So we check in. The maitre d' has the seating map. He sits us down, and I start talking to the gentleman next to us, and I find out they're from Cleveland and Youngstown. Well, welcome. So back then, you only had two things to eat. You had chicken or you had fish, or you had fish or you had chicken. So the gentleman next to me says, do you like Italian? I said, yeah, I love Italian. My girlfriend's Italian. So he gives the menu back to the waitress, and he said, they're going to eat with us. And I didn't know what that meant. Well, anyways, make a long story short, the waiters, they start coming out with calamari and eggplant and veal piccata and all these dishes that nobody else has. And my girlfriend says, who are these guys? I said, just go with the flow. Don't even worry about it, okay? Because I didn't really know who they all were, but they knew some of the people that I guess I knew. Anyways, we had a great show. So at the end of the show, I said, excuse me, sir, can I, how much do I owe you for our part of the bill? And he gave me this look like the look could kill. He said, listen, we don't get a check here. We just sign for it. Have a nice night. And that was our show for Frank Sinatra. And then later in the week, we went to see Sammy Davis because my girlfriend wanted to see Sammy do he used to do this special thing with Bojangles, Mr. Bojangles. And of course, when we got there, we were tourists and we ended up eating chicken. So anyways, that's just some of the times back in Vegas. But, I remember when Elvis was here.
Hold that story. Hold that story for just 1 second, okay? I just want to talk to everybody real quick. So tonight we're going to talk about a few craps, of course. We're going to talk about a few different things, a different way to set the dice. So Garrison has a system for rapid setting of the dice that I think everybody should take a look at. He's going to talk a little bit about betting strategies from the do and the don't side. He's also going to tell us a little bit about the table and the casinos having some energy and the 3 elements he has of the game. So those are the things that we're really going to get into the meat of things. But before we get there, if you have a set of dice, bring them with you. Because what's different about tonight's show is he's going to actually give you some hands-on things. He's going to teach you a little bit about dice setting, and it'll be helpful if you have a set of dice there with you. Okay, Garrison, I'm going to turn it back over to you and tell your Elvis story.
You have your little dice, or do you have the medium-sized dice, or do you have the Price is Right dice? Come on, Don Pardo, tell them what they won. I don't know what kind of dice you have, but... All right, so what was the question? I forgot where we're going.
Yeah, you were getting ready to tell a story about Elvis. So before we get into the dice...
real quick. He was playing at the International. Like I said, we used to go see the lounge shows. But you had to have permission from Elvis and the Colonel to play in the lounge because they wanted a certain type of music. All right, it was basically R&B, Blue-Eyed Soul. The Righteous Brothers played there. Ike and Tina Turner, Wayne Cochran. Dick Clark brought in his show with Jackie Wilson. And Jackie Wilson and Elvis were really tight. In fact, there's an old saying that Jackie Wilson was the black Elvis Presley, but the people that are really in music said, no, you got it all wrong. Elvis Presley was the white Jackie Wilson. So they were really good friends. And if you ever see the movie Girls, 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 Elvis does a song called Return to Sender, and he's doing his Jackie Wilson impersonation almost to the T. So you had to have their permission. And like I said, the lounges were probably the best shows in town. I mean, we saw a lot of people for one drink, B.B. King. Oh, real quick. Remember at the end of the Elvis's career, he used to come out with those capes and he did the cape routine. Well, Wayne Cochran, who was called the White James Brown, he gave Elvis a really long cape, but it was too long, so Elvis had it shortened. Wayne Cochran got the cape routine from an R&B singer by the name of James Brown. Now, there he is. That's me on the right, James in the middle, and my guitar player on the left. Okay, that's going back. And Wayne Cochran got the idea from James Brown, and James Brown, and this is in his autobiography, he got the cape idea from a wrestler called Gorgeous George. When Gorgeous George used to come into the ring, he had a valet with a cape. Or a robe, and James said, that's a cool idea, I'm going to take it. Wayne Cochran took it from him, and Elvis ended up taking it from Wayne Cochran. So there's a little story about the cape in the history of music. Boom.
Awesome. That's great. So we've got a couple of people out there commenting that Joe Banda, his dice are always next to him.
Oh,
James,
good.
He left his at home. He must be out on the road right now. But everybody, get your dice ready.
We have some for you.
Yeah, get your dice ready.
And they can always, I guess they can see this later on YouTube, and they can then kind of, do what we're doing on YouTube after the show.
Exactly. All right, Garrison, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Why don't you go ahead and start your talk on dice setting?
Oh, well, we're going to jump right into it. All right. Well, there's a lot of books out on dice setting. Most of them are great. I learned a lot. But when it came to naming the sets, everybody had different names for different sets. They'd say, put certain numbers on the top, certain numbers facing you, certain numbers behind you, turn one die one way, another die another way, turn around, do the hokey pokey. I mean, it got so confusing that I was confused, and I kind of know what dice setting is. So I kind of came up with a scenario that I think it'll make it easier. I'm all about the KISS method. Keep it simple. When I was in college, my professor said, there's two ways to teach things, complicated or easy. And if you keep it simple, you'll get it across. So basically, most people know, and I'm going to turn this down a little bit so you can see the dice. Most people know that each die has 6 sides. All right. So when you're doing the dice sets, and there's 6 master sets, 4 are for the players on the do side, and 2 are for the players on the don't side. And I know you have the book. I listed them all and broke it all down for you. But when you put a set of dice together, each die has an A side and a B side, just like a record back in the day. The other die has an A side and a B side. So I think I'll start with the what they call the hard way set, or the all 7 set, or the come out set. And here's a little tip. Think of a dice like a clock. 12 will be the numbers on the top, 6 will be the numbers on the bottom, and the inside access numbers, which are the key to the sets, are the 9 and the 3. Well, it's backwards for you, 9 and 3. Those are the numbers you want as your inside access numbers. So with the come out set, you're going to have the 6 and the 1 as your inside access numbers. You can't roll a 2, you can't roll a 3, and you can't roll 12s. So that's why it's called the come out set, because you can either establish a point or roll a 7. Now, a lot of people like to start with the hard ways. You got the hard ways all the way around. But some people say, well, if I double pitch that die, I can roll a 7. And that's part of the equation. But here's what people don't know. The dice can either bounce forward or they can bounce backwards. Most times when the dice hit the table, they bounce backwards. So you could take a die and roll it forward 2 turns, and it'll be a 7. But that same die can hit the table and go backwards 2 clicks. You've got a 7. All right, this one stayed on access, hit the table just the way it left your hand. But you can also take the other die and go forward 2 clicks. That's all 7s. Or that die could go backwards 2 clicks. That's all 7s. So that's 4 combinations right there. And here's what a lot of people, I don't think, realize. If you take one die, and I'm using my right, your left, and just click it forward 1 click, and then take the other die and go backward 1 click, guess what? All 7s. Or you could reverse that. Okay. We went forward, right? You can go forward or back, or you could go back and forward. So there's 2 more ways for the 7. Plus you have the inside access numbers and you have the outside access numbers. So in reality, you've got 6 ways to roll the 7 from the hard way set, plus your inside and your outside access numbers. That's why a lot of people call it the all 7 set. Now, randomly, you have 6 ways to roll a 7 out of 36 combinations. That's 16.66. With the hard way set, aka all 7 set, there's 4 ways to roll the 7 out of 16 combinations. That's 25%. 4 into 16 is 25. And then when you get into other sets, which are all in the book, I don't think we'll hit time to go over, 2 ways for the 7. So basically it comes out like this. You've got random 6 out of 36 combinations, 16.66. The hard way set, aka the all 7 set, 4 out of 16 combinations, that's 25%. And then the other sets, 2 out of 16, that's 12.5%. So after you establish your point, you're then going to want to go to another set that only gives you 12.5% ways to roll the 7. So that is a key, but it all goes back to the inside access numbers. And It's kind of like boxing horses. You can go A, B, or reverse it, BA, those are just sister numbers, or you can go AA, or if you want, you could go BB. It doesn't change the numbers on top because you're always using the same numbers. There's 4 times 4. There's 16 combinations to every set.
Yeah, so Garrison, I'm going to ask you to speculate on something real quick.
Sure.
So the all 7 set or the hard way set, either one, are popular sets that are taught. Do you have any idea why these sets are so popular?
Well, for the come out roll, they're popular because you can't crap out if you stay on access. You can't throw a 2, you can't throw a 3, and you can't throw a 12. So you can either roll a 7 because you have 4 ways to roll a 7, or you can establish a point. All right, you can't throw craps. Then after you establish your point, you change your set. And here's the way it breaks down. There's the best you can get on dice setting from the do side is there's 3 ways to roll the 6. There's 3 ways to roll the 8, and there's 2 ways to roll the 7. So the odds are 3-2 in your favor. Random, it's 6-5 against you. 6 ways for the 7, 5 ways for the 6 and 8. So
Random meaning off axis.
Yeah, just random, 6-5. Okay. So on access, you've got 3 ways for the 6, 3 ways for the 8, 2 ways for the 7. So it's 3-2 in your favor. But it's 2 ways for the 4, 2 ways for the 5, 2 ways for the 9, and 2 ways for the 10 with dice setting, and 2 ways for the 7. It's a 50-50 bet. That's the best you can get on dice setting. All right. Now, if guys place a lot of numbers, obviously you have more combinations. But there's 16 combinations to every set. 4 times 4 is 16. All right. So depending on what inside access numbers you put together. And here's the other thing, too. I know people say, I'm going to talk about the 3V set, or I never call it the 3V, I call it the cross 6, because what they want is they want to have 6s and 8s all the way around, okay? But what if the dealer sends you over the dice? All right, there's the 3V, right? But you have a 3 or a hard 6, then you have a 3, then you have an 11, and then you have the 3 again, and the 8. So you don't have 6s and 8s all the way around. You know why? You didn't have the right set. So, David, when you're setting a dice, it's all about the inside access numbers. Now, there's sister numbers also. Every die, the 2 sides are going to add up to 7. 6 and 1, 5 and 2. Hello, Houston. Private joke. 4 and 3, they add up to 7. When you put the dice together, they also have sister numbers. So if you have if one die is 7, 2 times 7 is 14. Whatever number you have on top, in this case the 2, the number that equals 14 will be on the bottom, the 12. If you have the 3 on top, the 11's on the bottom, all the way to 7, and obviously 7 are sister numbers. And if you have the 7 on the top, 7's on the bottom. So that's just kind of a shortcut. But if you're throwing the hard 6 down the table, because a lot of guys like to have 6 and 8s as their point, so they'll actually use the hard 6 or the 3V as their opening set. You get the hard 6 on top, and you get the hard 8 on the bottom. But David, if you throw the dice so hard and they hit the back wall and shake, you get the hard 6 on the top, and you crap out with the 3 on the bottom. You get the hard 6 on the top, and you crap out with the 3 on the bottom. Then you have to shake them and get them back with the right access numbers. So you have the hard 6 on the top and the hard 8 on the bottom. So it's all about the inside access numbers. The numbers you have on top are irrelevant. The glue, the super glue that holds the dice together are the inside access numbers. Remember, the best you can get is 3 ways for the 6, 3 ways for the 8, 2 ways for the 7, 2 ways for all the other numbers, 2 ways for the 7. The best odds, and I know people don't want to hear this, is when you set the dice and shoot from the don't side. Now you have
Garrison,
4 ways.
Before you get into the don'ts, let's take a couple of the questions. They're starting to queue up, and
Okay.
some of them are relevant to what you're talking about here. So before we move on, let's take a few of them.
Yeah, I can see them. I don't know what's
Yep, here we go. So number 1, what prompted you or motivated you to author a book and the videos for craps? So what was your inspiration to go public with it?
That's a good question. I've been friends with John Patrick for a long time, and he's probably, the Warren Buffett or the gambling guru. Written the two best books ever written on craps: his basic book, which is out of print, and the 600-page advanced book. And every time I read books, oh, there's John's book. Boy, guard that with your life. That's a hard book to get. John sends it to him as he autographs it. But to answer that gentleman's question, every time I read books, and I'm pretty good with numbers, a lot of things were correct, but then a lot of things were incorrect. And I said, well, if somebody's reading this, they're getting information that's not necessarily correct. So I just kept making notes for years and years and years. And then eventually, when I semi-retired from my major job in Vegas, I said, you know what? I really think I'm going to write something different and new and a different perspective. I sent all the information to John Patrick because he was never a dice setter. In fact, he never threw the dice at all. He would pass the dice, but he was strictly a place bettor, a hedge bettor. He has his systems that we get into. And I said, John, would you consider even writing the foreword for this dice setting book? Because John wasn't a dice setting book. But there's a lot more in it than just dice setting. Make a long story short, he said yes. Well, then I told my secretary, now I have no choice. I have to write the book because John's going to write the foreword. And then it just led into that. And I tried to make it as simple as possible. I used the KISS method. All the sets are in color. It shows you the inside access numbers. I give you the charts. And then I didn't want you to rip the book apart. So I came up with a dice setting strategy card that gives you all the numbers 2 through 12, the inside access numbers, how many ways you can make those numbers, and what set to use. And I know guys that actually put it in their chip rack when they're playing, just to give them a reminder. So all the do sides are on one side. You flip it over. It's got the sets to set your numbers for the don't, and then the 2 sets to 7 out. So it's just the KISS method. That's what I wanted to do, is make it easy. Dice is hard enough. I mean, it's complicated enough. We don't need to add more to it.
So Dice Grinder out there has a follow-up question. You were talking about the dice sets, but what you're showing is for people that toss parallel to the back wall. What do you do for an unconventional toss? So you've showed us how to set them, but do you toss them? Do you use like the par toss, or do you toss them the hook?
No, I don't show them the hook. That's called the mixing ball. I want to hit the dice as flat as I can. In this game, it's finesse. Softer is better. All right. And I used to shoot the pendulum method, but now with all the plexiglass and everything, sometimes you get a really big dealer that hangs over. I stand stick right with my hips to the wall, to the table, and I'm looking down the table. I want to see where I'm going to throw. And your hand then can get more into the middle of the table, and I throw that way. In the old days, they called it the blanket roll. I mean, this is nothing new. I've got a first edition book by John Scarney, 1945. I don't even like to bring it out because it's rare. But I have another version of his. And right in here, it talks about the blanket roll, the pad roll, using the inside access numbers. And in the old days, they would take the dice and just roll them down the table like a cartwheel. Well, in today's method, they take the same philosophy, but they put a little backspin on them. And instead of rolling them forward as a cartwheel, they want to go backwards, hit, and then back bouncewards. And if you go off access, hopefully you'll hit your inside access number. But if you go totally off access, you're random. But yeah, that's why they call it game.
Going back to your sets, and I'm just going to, let's say you're setting for the 6, and I'm not saying this is how you set it in your book, but if you're setting for the 6 and you explode, you're going to get the 6, or if you implode, you're going to get the 6. Sorry, these are too big to really fit on the screen. Well, that was an epic fail.
You have the 6. You have the 6 on the inside, and then your sister number is the 8. So you have 6s and 8s all the way around, and then you have the 6 on the inside and the 8 on the outside, your access numbers. So you're trying for 6s and 8s. But a lot of people don't know, and I'm going to move this. You have your sets for the 6 and 8. You have the sets for the 4s and the 10s. And a lot of people don't know this, and I show this in class. You have a set that gives you all 5s and 9s. All right? So if your ATS number you're trying to make, or your points 5 or 9, there's a set that'll give you all the 5s and 9s. And very few people know that set, but it's in the book with photographs. So everything is right there.
So I'm going to bring in one question from Top Hat Gaming, and this is the only one I'm going to bring in that asks about a specific set, because I think everybody likes to know, hey, I have my favorite set. What do you think about it? So let's use Top Hat Gaming here to talk about it. His favorite set is 6556. So
all right, now he's probably talking about the numbers on the top, because that's how people normally do it. 6556. All right. Well, unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that set will give you 4 ways for the 7. The 6 and the 1, the 1 and the 6, the 5 and the 2, and the 2 and the 5. So why use a set that has 4 ways to roll the 7 when you can use a set that only has 2 ways to roll the 7? And the set that he's talking about, I put it in a book. That's one of the sets from the don't side. We use that to 7 out because there's 4 ways for the 7. I would rather have him use a set that only has 2 ways for the 7. It cuts your loss by 50%, going from 4 ways to the 7 to 2 ways for the 7.
Awesome. All right, so you were getting ready to start to talk about the don't side, but before we get to that, I just want to recognize that we have a VIP out there in the audience. We have Tony Leo, the gaming pro, telling everybody to be nice.
Tony, he's from Vegas. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah. He says if you just get one tip that you can use, this is a good time. It's a good use of your time. So Tony, thank you for joining and watching tonight. We really do appreciate it.
Oh, and I've met Tony. He probably forgets when. I know Tony's really good on multiple bets and things like that. And in the back of the book, I think I forget what it's called. I did a chart. Will I roll easy or will I roll hard? I said there's 16 combinations in each set. So I actually broke down the 16 combinations. I know you have the book. And this tells you if you're going to roll the set easy or if you're going to roll the set hard. So when you get into multiple bets and hot bets, that chart in the back will definitely help the hot bettors. So thanks for tuning in, Tony. I appreciate it.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about betting strategies. For the do side and the don't side, you were getting ready to talk about it, how dice setters probably should be paying more attention to the 7.
Well, here's the thing. Every system works on occasion, and that same system is going to fail on occasion. So the key to this game is charting the table, getting a feel for the table, and betting accordingly. All right. There's 4 types of tables. Real quick. Number 1 is the hot table, everyone's favorite, and numbers are rolling. But it takes 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 11 games to have a hot roll. And by that, I mean at least 12 to 15 rolls. All right. So when I'm watching the table, I'll say, and it could be the first game, it could be the 5th game, it could be the 10th game. It's not necessarily the 15th game or the 12th game. It's 1 out of those 12 games. There's the don't table, and that comes up between 48 and 50% of the time. It's just common math. It's like flipping a coin. 50% of the time it's going to be the bull, and 50% of the time it's going to be the bear. All right, but players aren't really taught the right way to bet the don't side, and most of the books don't get into it. I wrote 2 chapters on how to utilize the don't, and the casinos are never ever going to tell you to bet on the don't side, because if you're on the don't side, they're on the pass line side, and they don't like to be on that side. You have the advantage. And then when you get into hedge betting and things like that in advance, it really puts the odds in your favor. So that's the second table. The third type of table is the choppy table. Win a hand, lose a hand, win a hand, lose a hand, heads, tails, heads, tails. You have to be a psychic to win at that table, because you just can't get a flow of the table. Type is something that I came up with that's in the book, and I call it the torpedo table. Now, we've all been to them, and it took me years to figure out not to play at a torpedo table. Now, David, you're going to say, what's a torpedo table? Okay, no matter where you put your bet, it comes up opposite. You put it on the pass line, the shooter 7's out. You're betting the pass, the shooter throws 3 7s. You're betting 22, 44, 88, 880 inside. The next roll is a 7. All right. there's yin and yang in the universe. All right. If you're not in connection with the universe, you're fighting it. And a torpedo table is when no matter what happens, the energy's fighting you. Now, if you have a lost limit, you're going to get to that lost limit real quick. So you're going to just say, I'm done. But we've all been in them. We've all said, well, things have got to change. No, they don't. If it's raining outside, you can't go outside and say, I want it to be sunny. Please stop raining. You have to wait for that energy to change. So if you're at a torpedo table, run. Don't walk to the exit. Take a break. Come back at a later time. So that's the four tables. Where were we going? I forget.
Well, we were going to go to maybe some betting strategies, but I think this is also a good time. But before we get there, I think this might be a good segue into talking about the energy of the casino and the energy of the table. You've written an entire chapter on this.
Yeah, I wrote the energy of the table, the energy of the universe, and the energy of the table. Everything has an energy. Even dice are made up of molecules and atoms. So there's an energy there. And a really good intuitive player is going to pick up on that energy. It's called charting the table. But you see this all the time. 4 or 5 shooters in a row have 7'd out, and they keep betting the pass line. They say, well, it has to change. No, it doesn't. It can stay like that for a while. You can leave later, and then it could change. But you have to bet accordingly based on the energy of the table. I've got a lot of books in my collection. Okay. This is one that most people have never seen, Radar on Dice. I found it in a bookstore for $1. And there's a chapter in here called, Can the Dice Be Willed to Win? Now, this is them talking, not me. At Duke University, Dr. Joseph Rhine, we're doing experiments in parapsychology, AKA ESP. It gives you all the information. I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes. Down at the bottom, it says, after many trials, the Duke experimenters decided that with concentration, a strong-minded individual could actually control the dice and make certain numbers more than just frequently. Now, this is from Duke University.
And what year was that written?
God, the copyright on this, it's kind of beat up. I had to put a cover on it. Copyright on this is 1957. So what is that? 40, 60 some years ago. Yeah. All right. So people were doing experiments way back when. Like I said, craps is the oldest game in existence. It started with the Romans back 1500 BC when they used chicken bones to roll the dice. That's where rolling bones came from. So I'm always looking for trends. You're at the table for such a small time. Anything can happen in that small time. They say, well, a 6 is going to be rolled, or a 7 is going to be rolled every 6 rolls. Well, that's over thousands and thousands of rolls. But you're there for maybe 100, 200 rolls. Anything can happen. It's kind of like being on the Mickey Mouse Club on Wednesday. You know what Wednesday was, David?
No idea.
Anything can happen day.
Oh.
So anything can happen in that small little space of time because you're only there for, what, an hour, 2 hours? Okay? Maybe 100 rolls out of 10,000. That's 0.01%. And then there's cluster numbers. You'll see a lot of 6s come up with no 8s. Why didn't the dice roll 6, 8, 6, 8, 6, 8? Because those are what they call cluster numbers or signature numbers. I used to have a chart that I would do for tracking. And if I would see a certain number roll 2 or 3 times within 5 rolls, boom, I'm on it, place it. Because that number keeps coming up. So every system will work on occasion. Every system will fail on occasion. Even the craziest systems in the world will sometimes hit. But you have to chart the table and bet accordingly. And 90% of the players are only pass line bettors. When they know by using common sense and math, if you flip a coin 100 times, it's going to come up heads 50 times, and it's going to come up tails 50 times. But nobody ever switches over to the other side. I mean, it boggles my mind.
All right, so maybe can we talk a little bit about the betting strategies and especially on the dark side and taking odds?
You mean laying?
Laying odds, yes.
Okay.
I don't want to go too deep into. Yeah, I didn't want to go too deep into what you're talking about in the book, but But I do think that this is one of those things that that you can share an opinion on. And
All right. Well, the dark side gives you the best advantages of the table, even if you're random. You got 6 ways for the 7 versus 5 ways for the 6 and 8, 4 ways for the 4 and 9, 3 ways for the 3 for the 4 and a 10. So even if you're just random, you got that 7 working for you. Now all the books tell you the same thing. Take a don't pass line bet and lay the maximum odds that the table allows. And my question is why? Why would I lay 20 to win 10 or 50 to win 25? Here's where they have the cart in front of the horse. They say the more odds you lay, the lower your return, lower your house vig. But David, you're not playing for the house vig. You're playing for money. Okay? If you go to the cashier's cage, they're not going to say, you know, David, since you were playing for a little lower house advantage, we're going to pay you more money. What they're going to ask you is, how much money do you have in chips? Because that's what we're going to pay you on. So if you're on the don't side, once that point's established, don't lay odds. They got to pay you dollar for dollar, which is 100% return on investment. If you lay odds, let's say you have $10 on the pass line. We'll do it real simple. All right, let's say the point's 4 or 10, the best point you can get. Let's say you lay $20 odds, okay? You've got $30 on the table.
Can you push your camera down just a little bit? See what you're doing there with those chips? Can you push it?
Okay. Well, basically, you've got $10 on a don't. This is the real table. And you got $20 odds. So you've got $30 on the table. If the shooter 7's out, you win. You win $10, 100% return on investment here, but you only win 50% return on investment here. So you bet 30 to win 20. If you didn't take odds, you got to pay. They pay you 10 for 10. That's 100% return on investment. Over here, you bet 30 to win 20. That's what is it? 66%. I forget myself. I'm so tired. 20 divided by 30 is 66%. You won 20, you bet 30. It's 66.66%. So why give up that extra house advantage when you can just bet dollar for dollar? Now what you do is you hedge bet, and that's in the classes. You know, there's ways to hedge bet. Now, not only do you have 6 ways for the 7, okay, 2, 4, 6. But now you got an extra way for the hedge bet. So that takes you down to 7 to 2 for the 4 and a 10, and 7 to 4 for the 6 and 8. You've got the house against the wall. They hate don't bettors, don't come bettors, and hedge bettors. They want you to lay, as much odds as you can so they can get some of that money back. So that's what they call a simple don't bet.
So let me ask you this. Let's see if we can go here. So when you're laying odds in a short game, in a session, does that make sense? But if you're thinking of playing craps over your lifetime, is that any different? Would laying the odds work any better for you over the long run rather than a short run?
No, because as soon as you lay odds, you're giving power back to the casino. You've got the casino against the wall. They've got to pay you dollar for dollar. There's a whole chapter in it I wrote about when I was playing here at the Suncoast. I'm betting $25 on the don't pass. I got a new female dealer just out of dealer school. She said, "Sir, don't you want to lay odds on your don't?" I said, "No, I'd rather you pay me dollar for dollar if I win that bet." Well, it kind of went over her head and she didn't get it. But the box man looked at me like, okay, he gets it. He knows that if he doesn't lay odds and he wins, we have to pay him 100% return on investment. If I would have laid $50 odds, I would have had 75 to win 50. This way I bet 25 to win 25. All right. So again, you have to know the parts of the table that will give you a higher return on investment. Now, I definitely believe in hedge betting. We don't have time to get into it. It's in the book. It's in the classes. I put it in the Platinum Craps book. But when you start to hedge bet, now you've got the house against the wall. And the casinos don't like this, but there's nothing they can do about it because you become the booker. They become the bookie. Remember, if you're betting on the pass line, the house is the don't. And that's where they want to be. If you're betting on the don't side, the house becomes the pass line. Well, they don't want to be on the pass line because the odds don't favor them. The odds favor being on the don't side. And then when you hedge bet, now you've got them against the wall. And unfortunately, when I teach or I talk to people, I know less than 10% of the people know these methods.
So I'm reading a comment down here. I'm going to bring it up on the screen. It says, why do y'all keep skipping over the issue that a dark side player has to worry about hitting the 7 or the 11 on the come out roll? Yeah, I don't think you're glossing over that.
No, I'm not. Here's the thing. You lose on a 7, 11 on the come out roll, but you can hedge the 11. I'll give you a quick hedge. If you get to $15 or more on the don't, throw $1 on the 11. Now you've got a small dollar bet to protect your big don't bet. Okay? Don't bet the any 7 because the vig is too high against you. Some guys now are maybe hopping it, But the thing is, you've got 36 combinations, okay? So if you take away the 7, you've got 6 combinations. That gives you 30 combinations because you just hedged your 11. Well, 30 divided by 36, okay? My battery's down, but you've got 88.3% chance of rolling a number or possibly winning with the 2, 3, 12's a push. You just had your 11. So you've got an 83% chance of getting a number or winning. Those are great odds, for the don't better.
Well, not to mention that you talked about dice setting for the come out roll.
Right.
I imagine your dice set for a don't better would be different advice than a do better.
Well, I just did an interview not too long ago, and I gave him an example. This actually happened. I'm playing at Arizona Charlie's, which is a local casino here, and everyone left because this gentleman had a good roll and everyone cashed out. But it was my turn to roll, so I decided to stay. And one other gentleman, an Oriental gentleman, was way at the other end of the table, and he was a don't better. So I said, I'm going to practice my dice setting, and I put it on the don't side. There's sets, and they're in the book, of how to roll the numbers you want. Now, for the don't side, it's 4, 5, 9, and 10. Those are the numbers you want for the don't side. Okay, but even if 6 and 8 is your don't point, you still have the odds in your favor. But anyways, I rolled for the point, 4, 5, 9, or 10. I take a couple DC bets, don't come bets, get those bets behind the number. Then I would set the dice for a 7 out set from the don't side, they're in the book, and we would 7 out. We would win our don't pass line bet at 100%, no odds, and we'd win all our don't come bets. Make a long story short, we did this for 9 games. I won 8 out of 9 because the other gentleman just passed me the dice. He just gave them to me. We did this for 9 games. We won 8 out of 9, which is a return of 80%. 8 divided by 9, 88.88%. I missed one number because my point was 6, my don't point, and the dice went off axis and I made the 6. I only lost the don't pass line bet, but I didn't lose any of the don't come bets because they were on other numbers. And as I was doing this, I had to cover my action because, the box man's looking at us after about 5 wins in a row. And I said, I'm so sorry. The dice are so cold. I don't understand what's going on. And he got a little upset and he goes, well, you're winning money, aren't you? And I said, yeah, but this is the way you want to do it. But we knew exactly what we were doing. And then we had the 7 on our favor if they rolled random. And after about 9 games, I just colored in because I was getting a little too much heat. But shooting from the don't side can be unbelievable. And when you win your don't pass line bet and you win all your don't come bets. So your return on investment could be 200, 300, 400%. My record is 1 don't pass line bet and 4 DC bets. So I had a 500% return on investment on one roll.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, drink.
Yeah, no problem. So we have about 10 minutes left in the show. If you guys have any questions that you'd like for me to bring up, please put them out there in the chat, and I'll try to get to as many as we can. And the subject that I would like to end the show on is you talk about the 3 elements of the game, and it really kind of summarizes the book, I thought, fairly well. So if you would mind digging into that, give these the viewers a minute to put in some comments, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, well, there's what they call the 80-20 rule in business. 20% of your items are going to do 80% of your volume. So I guess the first element is, from a dice setter point of view, is, being a controlled shooter, practicing, know all your sets. That's number one. Know your sets, or you're just wasting your time. Stay away from the high percentage bets. We talked about odds on the don't side. Remember, control means being a controlled shooter as well as a controlled bettor. So you have to know knowledge of the game, money management. Discipline is so important. We didn't get into that, but a professional player is looking for 20 to 30, 40% return on investment. If you keep winning, you lock up a certain percentage of that. So knowledge is number one. Number two is the element of the game. Is the table a bouncy table? Is it a hard table? Is the crew being nice to you? Or are they giving you a lot of headaches because there's an energy at the table? So you want to have everything flowing, the people treating you. And the third element is a little bit of luck. And luck is opportunity meeting preparation. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you're prepared, you know the game, you charted the table, and you're betting appropriately, people say, oh, well, you were just lucky. No, I wasn't. I knew the game, I was prepared, and I had the opportunity either to play on the right side of the table or the wrong side of the table, and I won money. So, you have to be prepared. You have to know how the table's running. And like I said, certain systems are going to work one day, that same system will fail the next day. What was the old cartoon? I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for the hamburgers I have on Monday. Well, it's the same thing with systems. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for the system I use on Monday, but the system I use Wednesday may be different. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration when you're playing craps. I mean, yes, it's a numbers game, it's a math game, but there's also an energy, and you have to check into it. Remember, over the long run, it's approximately 50% do and 50% don't. One of the chapters I wrote in the book is all right bettors die broke because they don't know how to utilize the other end of the table, the other side.
Awesome. All right, we do have a couple of people out there asking some questions, and War Baby's asked this one twice, so I'm going to go ahead and bring it up, even though we didn't want to get too much into the sets. So based on the dark side numbers, then a 1-2-4-2 would be a good dark side set. And I'm assuming he's saying 1-2-4-2.
He's probably talking about, I don't know how he's setting the dice because I'm all about inside access numbers, but he's probably talking about, what is it, 1-2-4-2?
4-2, yeah. So you're three. You have a 3 and a 6 on the inside.
3-6 or 3-1. Well, on the dark side, you want a 7 out. So you want a set that's going to give you 4 ways for the 7. This particular set that he has only gives you 2 ways for the 7, the 2-5 and the 5-2. So if you're going to 7 out, use a set that gives you 4 ways for the 7, not 2. Yep. And that's why I wrote the book.
Okay. And then Big Tray 3, TTUC from the Houston Dice Club, says, loves the info, Garrison, and he has a new nickname for you. He calls you Slick.
Oh, well, I don't know if that's good or bad. It's just a little old school. I'm old school, I don't have the hats. I don't have the $300 tennis shoes, Yeah. But I guess I'll take that as a compliment. I hope. Oh, Daniel.
I know Big Tray 3. That was meant to be as a compliment. So.
Okay. Well,
and then Daniel.
What did Daniel say?
Says 80-20 rules. Very interesting. Can you touch or add anything new to the 80-20 rule?
Yeah, here's the 80%. Knowledge, money management, discipline, charting the table. 20% is knowing your dice sets, staying on access. But a lot of players can win a lot of money and never pick up the dice. Look at the table in Bogota. A lady rolled 154 rolls. She was a random roller. It was her second time playing. She bought in for $100. She rolled for 4 hours. Everybody else around there had the opportunity to make a lot of money. Unfortunately, they weren't prepared. They were all $100 bettors, $12 place bettors. They didn't know how to press and they just didn't know the game, but they had the opportunity. So they answered the question: 80% knowledge, money management, discipline, charting the table, knowing the game thoroughly. What we teach, that's the first thing I teach, all that. Then we get into systems. Once you learn all that, then we'll get into dice setting. But dice setting is the icing on the cake. Too many people have the cart in front of the horse. They think dice setting is the say ball. They forget, that the horse is in front of the cart. And remember what I said earlier. The best you can get on dice setting from the deuce side, absolute best. And you don't have to be Nikola Tesla to figure this out. 3 ways for the 6, 3 ways for the 8, 2 ways for the 7. It's 3-2. 2 ways for the 4, 2 ways for the 5, 2 ways for the 9, 2 ways for the 10, 2 ways for the 7. It's a 50-50 bet.
Okay, moving on to the next question. Skill and Luck is asking, does Mr. Garrison like to bet both ways at the same time, and why? So I'm
All right, now that's called the Patrick system. It's in the that's on the come out. If his answer is, do I bet both ways at the same time? The answer is yes, because I know my limit to my rolls. Okay, am I the best dice setter in the casino? Absolutely not. But I know I can roll, maybe 10 to 15 rolls. So after about roll 10 or 11, I start hedge betting, which is betting on the other side of the table. He knows what it is. I'm not going to get into it. But then if I 7 out, I've cut down on my place bets. I didn't lose 100%. And I'm going to make something up. And we talked about parts of the table that can do that. I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket and just keep betting heads, because everyone knows if you bet heads, tails is going to come up eventually.
Yeah.
Good question.
Next one comes from the Dice Doctors. What does Garrison think of the one hit can't miss strategy? It's a strategy he saw here on my show one time, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with one hit can't miss, but essentially it's a don't pass and placing the 6 and the 8. You win on a 6 or an 8, you just one hit one time, you're going to break even.
Well, if you're on the don't pass and you're hitting the 6 and 8 and you take your bets down, you could also pick up your don't pass bet, because that's not a contract bet. So you could take your 6 and 8, take your profit, bring every bet down, and that's a one hit strategy. I mean, it's in and out. The guys that press, they 7 out. I wrote a chapter, Peter Press versus Ronnie Regress. Mm-hmm. When you're first starting and you've got short money, you're buying in for 200 or whatever, you've got to take a couple hits and come down right away. You want to build up your bankroll. Remember, you need 10 times the amount of your first bet. So if you're betting for $12.06, $12.08, you should have at least $200 to $220 in your bankroll to sustain you. But to answer that gentleman's question, not a bad strategy at all. If more players did that, they'd probably walk away with a percentage. A good player is looking for 10, 20, 30% return on investment. When you learn how to win small, that's discipline. And then when those big wins come, that's just icing on the cake. Sometimes I go in and people say, my girlfriend will say, well, you only won 20%. I said, honey, the number one rule of gambling is it's not how much money you win. It's how little you lose. Any win, small, is better than a medium to size loss.
Yep. All right, the last comment we have out here is, great show. Thank you for the info, from Nick Lumbo. He recently got your book and he's really enjoying it.
Well, thank you, Nick. I don't know where he's from, but I appreciate the background. If you have any questions, the information's in the back. The website's platinumcraps.com. Our phone number's there. We're all Well, you can get it at the Gambler's Bookstore in town. I'm working with them. I just signed a contract for the ebook. A publisher wants to do the ebook, and I stayed away from it. But I guess now with the millennials and that, I'm old school. I'd rather have the book in my hand. But these kids want to put it on their iPad. I purposely didn't go with Borders and all these people, and they asked me to because you only get 10% of retail. And I did the numbers, and I said, you know what? I'd rather just do it Facebook and stuff like that, and it's worked out very well. But to answer your question, the website's the best because if you do, we throw in one dice setting card with the book, and I give you 5 if you get one of the systems. So we do give you a little extra bonus by going to the website. Or a lot of people just call the office. We have an 800 number and we have a regular number. But yeah, you can get it on the Gambler's Bookstore, and it will be out in ebook version in the next couple months.
Okay. And so on your Facebook forum, it's a public forum, right? That anybody can come out and exchange thoughts and comments and.
Yeah, we have a group. I think we have I've only been out with this because I had a full-time job. We've been out about a year and a half. I started the group on Facebook. It's called Platinum Craps and Dice Setting Group. We've got on YouTube. We've got over 3,000 followers and subscribers, so we're easy to find.
Well, that's another good point on YouTube. You have had thousands of hits. You only have about 6 or 7 videos out there, but
Right.
But they have been pretty popular over time. So,
Well, the first one someone took down. The first one I did on dice setting, and some people said I put too much information on YouTube. I said, you know what? I'd rather have the players be better players. I'm not worried about it. The first YouTube clip had almost 200,000 hits. They took it down. It was on the do dice setting, so I had to redo it. That one's back up to about 90,000 hits. So, and here's the thing. You get your naysayers. You get, you're going to get some people that say things about you, but I'm pretty good at doing percentages. And luckily, we've been over 92 to 94% positive. And, if you're a sales manager and your sales staff's doing 94% closing, he'll be pretty happy. So I really can't complain.
very good. Now, it's more than just a book. You have some other products that you sell, and you also
Yeah, we actually do. We took the classes because some people say it's a little, they don't like to read. We actually put all the classes on flash drive. We used to have it years ago. John had it on VHS. Well, those days are gone. Then we had it on DVD, and DVDs are on their way out. They're becoming like 8 tracks. So we have all 4 classes: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and super, along with my dice setting class. And the thing that's nice about the flash drive is you can put it in your laptop, use it in the car, use it at work. You're going on vacation, you're coming to Vegas, you're going on a cruise. I mean, everything is just on the flash drive, and it just fits right in. And then if you go on the website, we have John's books. I think you have one of his books. I think you have the basic book. But this is the Holy Grail, guys, the 600-page advanced book. And what's nice is that John actually takes time out, and he's not going to be around forever. He actually autographs it for the customer. So you actually get a signed book by John. So yeah, everything's on the website. And we also do blackjack, roulette, baccarat. His big thing is sports. John's a real big sports handicapper, and he lives in Florida. So that's his main thing right now, sports handicapping.
nice.
Yeah.
So just coming back over here one more time so everybody can see it. You can follow Garrison on Facebook, find him on YouTube, and find him on the web. His email is garrisoncraps@gmail.com. Send him an email, and I'm sure he'll be glad to respond to you. So Garrison, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to spend it here with us. We really do appreciate it. And
Well, thank you. I just want to thank you, David, for all the time and effort you put in, for the people that have, actually taken time out to ask questions. I hope they learned a little bit. And as always, my friend, good luck at the tables.
Thank you, sir. All right, guys, let's take a quick look at the schedule for what's coming up next. We have the Council of Craps, where we're going to have several of my friends from the craps community just going to be joining us, and we're just going to be chatting. There's not going to be a strong format here. We'll be taking your questions on what would you like to ask the council. And on May 3rd, Ron the Don, he's going to be here to talk about playing in the craps tournament at Paris. And May 10th, I'm not sure what's going to happen just yet. May 10th, I will be traveling. I don't know if I'm going to make it home in time to do a live show. So I'll be working on something. I'll try to get something posted, whether it can be live or not. Then May 17th, we've got Tony Leo returning. Talk a little bit more about wage. And after that, we don't know. We don't have anything scheduled after that. So if you have a topic or an idea that you would like to see here on the show, please email me at samebet777@gmail.com. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week. We'll see you next week. Thank you.